Hi, welcome to channel 16. In this module, the risk management 2, we shall discuss consequences. Participants are requested to go through risk model management module 1 on hazards before viewing this module. I'm your trainer for this particular session. So, this module addresses what is consequences, what is severity of consequences, and what is risk. Assessing consequences is easy, while identifying hazards requires experience. Now, if you look into the picture out here, we need experienced persons to identify hazards. Seniority, that's what we need. Now if you look in the other picture that's on your screen now, this person will fall and get injured. That's what the child says. So that is what consequences is all about. So even a child knows what could happen with a man working in an unsafe manner on the ladder. Thus, assessing consequences is a child's play, but that doesn't go for identifying hazards. Thus, seniors should be involved in the hazard identification process, and if required, they can leave the assessment of the consequences to junior staff, which is a child's play. Now, how do we measure consequences? Just like we measure temperature in degrees Celsius or height in meters or pressure in kgs per centimeter square, we measure consequences in terms of the severity of harm they cause while doing a task for a given state or a condition. When we talk about severity of harm, you can have a small oil spill on the deck, or alternatively, that's in comparison to, let's say, a spill that results in polluting the entire port, right? So severity level of consequences in some situations now can be reduced. Now there is a misconception that severity can't be reduced. We'll discuss that, how we can reduce that. Now severity, you have a low severity level. If you see, the consequences is possibly a small finger injury. A first aid alone on the ship can be carried out, whereas sometimes you can have a high severity level that can lead to fatality. So that's the severity level, and a small spill on the deck versus a complete oil spill in the port, right? Okay. Now severity can't be reduced for all situations. That means if you want to reduce the severity level for every assessment, no, that may not be possible, but for certain situations it is possible. The 31,000 standard also very clearly states that severity can be reduced in certain circumstances. Let's look at some examples. Now, the airbags in a car are meant to reduce the severity level of consequences to passengers. Look at the fenders, used in an STS operation or during bunkering operations. Is another way to reduce the severity of the impact of a metal-to-metal contact. So severity level can be reduced, but in certain circumstances. Now, if you look here, you have on the x-axis the severity of the consequences, which is from, say, A, insignificant, to minor, moderate, major, and catastrophic. That's the x-axis. And then the y-axis, you have the probability, which starts off from rare, improbable, unlikely, remote, possible, likely, and almost certain. So, if the severity level is catastrophic and likelihood is improbable, the hazard cannot be ignored. I'll repeat again. If the severity level is catastrophic and the likelihood is improbable, let's say unlikely, the hazard cannot be ignored just because the likelihood is extremely remote, right? So that's very important. A hazard such as a main engine failure while transiting a canal, right? Now it's possible, the likelihood is very low, but the results can be catastrophic. Now, what exactly is risk level? Risk level is degree of uncertainty while doing a task. So how do we get to this risk level? What is the formula? So basically, the risk level is a combination of the likelihood of the hazard. That means, what is the likelihood that a hazard could occur in a given work environment? And we multiply that the severity of the consequences uh, and what could be the severity level of the consequences, and that gives us the risk level. By conducting a risk assessment before performing a task, such as entering a tank for inspection or any other task that has risk, what we are doing by conducting a risk assessment is minimizing the level of uncertainty that exists. Now, risk level is the combination of likelihood of the hazard multiplied by the severity of the consequences, right? So theoretically, if hazard is zero, right, so the risk level is going to be zero. Now, integrated risk management is the integration of ISM code, ISO 9001, 14001, 45001, and cybersecurity risk assessment. Now, instead of doing these risk assessments in a separate matrix, you can have an integrated approach to risk assessment. So if you go to the risk management module 3, that's RM3, which is the third and last module on the risk management, that sort of gives you an idea how you can have an integrated approach in risk management, minimize your documentation and the administrative burden on the ship staff and the office staff. Hope the presentation was useful in clearing the doubts on severity of consequences and how to use the likelihood of hazards and severity of consequences to determine the risk level and degree of uncertainty. Thank you for giving us your time for this.